in our platform, humans will be working closely with AI. With the help of AI, they can achieve more.
It is interesting to see how the market values language services generally in language tech.
Also interesting that you've got private equity investing in the game space.
And welcome everyone to another episode of SlatorPod. Hi there, Esther.
Hey, Florian.
Today on the program, we have Tim Jung, the CEO of XL8, like in the hashtag XL8. Definitely one of the most interesting startups in the language industry I've come across recently. So it's kind of MT, expert in the loop tech for media localization and events. Stay tuned. Really interesting. So what's in the doc today? We talk about LSP ranking, hyper-specialized TMS, raising an initial seed round, fewer jobs out there, and kind of some poaching in the game lock industry going on. We don't know if it's poaching. We'll unpack it later. But first, Esther, so we launched a new product for our subscribers called Language Industry Data News Briefing.
Yeah.
Just tell us just briefly what's in there and how can people access it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a new monthly product that is packed full of data and news. So we're running through the latest M&A coverage from Slator, funding, the jobs index as well, financial results, and then we're going to pick out the top Slator stories, the top SlatorPod quotes, as well as the new hiring, key hires, both on the buy side and on the vendor side, discussing product launches and viral tweet and LinkedIn post, both of them. All in one place.
All in one place, exactly. And so if you don't have time to stay up to date every day, I mean, this is your kind of definitive briefing and data for the month. So launching this now typically comes out in the first couple of days of the subsequent months. And it's available to all of our subscribers, starting with like the basic subscription, the starter subscription. So yeah, here's the plug. Go subscribe if you're not yet, and get a monthly update. So part of this also, which we skipped, is actually we're looking at the performance of listed language service providers. There's like a dozen of them, and we also kind of put an updated chart in there. So let's just briefly go through where things stand at the moment. So if I had invested $100 in January 2022 into LSPs, it would all be gone. No, I'm just kidding.
You wouldn't be that happy.
Do you know that Simpsons episode where like I think, what is it? Bart goes to no, it's not Simpsons. It's South Park. It's South Park. So he goes to the bank and like he basically gives the bank guy like the money, and then like within like a couple of seconds, he's like, we're going to invest that into XYZ product, and it's gone.
I see. It's not quite that bad. Anyway.
It's not quite that bad. There was only one safe place. The safe place being Honyaku Center, which admittedly, lost a lot in the preceding couple of years. And then, of course, there's a currency loss with the Japanese yen being like at its weakest in decades. So, but overall, I mean, it's roughly in line with the market. So we're basically just tracking performance of the dozen or so listed language service providers, listed being they're listed on the stock exchange. And then we also kind of give a benchmark, which is literally the broadest possible global index of all stock exchanges kind of averaged out. And if you look at the chart, the LSPs, some of them are above the average, some of them are below. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a brutal year in the markets anyway this year. So LSPs are no exception. Now, Appen is down nearly 70%. So that's the worst performer. The best performer is Honyaku, but then if you look at those that kind of have done well over the past couple of years already, that will be Zoo. So they're only down 9%, better than market average. Keywords also okay-ish, around minus 19%, and RWS lost 45% year to date, and also British pounds being pretty weak. So I guess if you're in the dollar space,
I would invest pounds, so maybe it's not quite as bad for me.
It's not quite as well. Well, it's 45% exactly. But if you've invested in dollars, it's probably more like 50%. Anyway, so a lot of this is in that briefing. So head over there and check it out. I think it is interesting to see how the market values language services generally in language tech. There's a couple of language tech companies like MetaReal, the Japanese one. So very interesting there. And on the very other side of the company life cycle, basically when you start raising money for your idea, not yet IPO, there's a long journey between, is a company called Neur.on, Neur.on, based here in Switzerland. They raised a 1.6 million seed round to, we initially thought it was custom MT, but then the founder clarified that it's basically a hyper specialized TMS, which is interesting. So hyper specialized for legal. And this is a spin-off of a Swiss-based legal LSP called Hieronymus. So interesting that basically an kind of LSP owner would say, well, let me go and, I don't know, preempt the disruption, start my own tech company.
It's like XTRF back in the day when they started out as an LSP, didn't they?
That's right. And then obviously also you're super familiar with all the nitty-gritty kind of devil in the detail problems of your clients, right? So this is legal, mostly legal and finance. And they're really addressing the buyer market, so the user buyer market. And they raised funds via a kind of Swiss investor club. I'm familiar with them. I went to one of their presentations once, or like not presentations, one of their pitch days. It's called SICTIC. Quite a mouthful. It's kind of like a Y Combinator style, startup. It's not an incubator because they're not taking a stake in the companies, but they're basically giving very, very early stage companies a platform to pitch. And it's really interesting when you're there, they let like 6 or 7 pitch, like literally their I don't know, 20-second elevator pitch or 30 seconds. And then the audience would vote.
Is it like an auction where you kind of raise your hand and say?
I think it's smartphone. You just vote if you like to hear more from that particular company, and then like 3 make it into the final and get like the full 15, 20 minutes to present the idea. So brutal for the ones presenting, really cool for the ones sitting there enjoying the show. So back to Neur.on. They got a couple of investors from legal operations management tool, High IQ, the founder there, and then a partner from Kirtland Ellis, one of the biggest law firms in the world, and then a Geneva-based wealth management firm. So kind of finance and legal and tech all in the target space. And they developed it through a collaboration with some lawyer linguists, NLP engineers, and then a Swiss university here. It was all founded by Paula Reichenberg. She's the CEO of that LSP and did that spinoff. And when we asked about like, is this custom MT? She said, we would describe our solution as a hyper specialized TMS rather than an NMT tool. And currently they're based here in Switzerland, but they're expanding. First port of call for expansion would be London because it's huge. Of course, probably the biggest or second largest global hub for legal services. All right, Neur.on, good luck to you. And jobs environment getting a little bit more challenging. Esther, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of remains to be seen if it's a bit of a blip or obviously something a bit more long term. But because this is just a snapshot in September, but the September jobs index fell by 4.5 points versus August. So it's quite a big drop, the biggest drop this year since the January decline, which is seasonal, as we know. But I think, as you kind of alluded to when you're talking about, the shares and the performance of listed LSPs, it's kind of in line with the broader global business environment. And obviously we've got the inflation pressures and the energy crisis looming over Europe, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, the index now is around 178 points down from August, but August was actually an all-time high for the index. And the index figure is currently around where it was earlier this year in April and June. So it's a big dip, probably pointing at things to come, but it's not terrible so far. And as we know, the industry has remained resilient in the past, historically amid COVID, etc. And yeah, we're still 78 points above the baseline, which was back in July 2018. So there's a long way to fall if it does.
Yeah, we don't want to get back to July 2018. That's a long way back.
Yeah. It's like 4 years, more than 4 years ago. It's like, let's not rewind to then.
A lot has happened since. All right. And then, so there was another story, I guess, that was a couple of months ago, and we want to talk about it now. Universally Speaking, a game localizer. So they poached the CMO of Keyword Studios. I mean, okay, poaching is a tough word to use. We don't know if they poached, but at least they I mean, maybe resigned and joined or whatever, right? But so they got the CMO of like their, much larger rival Keywords to join them as CEO while the founder stepped away. So tell us more about that story.
Andrew Brown is the new CEO of Universally Speaking. So it's a UK-based video game service provider. It is kind of like a mini Keywords because it not only provides game localization, but it also does a number of other outsourced game services. So things like the quality assurance, QA, and audio services. But a much smaller scale than Keywords. And I think, as you said, Keywords market leader. I think they did something like €500 million plus in revenues last year. About $200 million of that is coming from localization. CMO, formerly CMO at Keywords, Andrew Brown, joined Universally Speaking back in July, I think it was. Andrew, he also had experience at Activision, which we wrote about a while ago when we talk about Call of Duty and all of the localization that goes into some of those massive games. He spent 10 years at the games publisher. Talking a bit more about Universally Speaking, it was founded by Vicky Peggs in 2005. And she now has transitioned to a non-exec role, non-exec director and advisor role with Universally Speaking, having been the CEO since it was founded. And I mean, another thing about Universally Speaking, perhaps went a little bit under the radar, is that they were actually sold in a majority sale to a private equity firm last year. So Phoenix Equity Partners took a majority stake in the company in March 2021. With the founder reinvesting as well. Interesting in the sense that they've in quotes, poached, but obviously brought on board somebody with really deep experience of not just of the industry, but of their, like you say, main rival and the biggest market leader. Also interesting that you've got private equity investing in the game space, albeit more than a year ago now. But there's obviously an opportunity that they see there with, a market with really good, strong tailwinds, one major, player front runner in Keyword Studios. So interesting to see what he will be focusing on as CEO going forward.
Having been this chief marketing officer, we should probably expect the company to become a bit more
visible,
above the radar, because they've been quite under the radar. So maybe, as a CMO, temptation is to make a bit of noise. Maybe we should ask them on the podcast.
We definitely should.
All right, so now we're heading over to XL8 and Tim Jung and talk about MT and expert in the loop tech for media localization and events. Stay tuned. And welcome back, everyone, to SlatorPod. Really happy to have Tim Jung join us today. So Tim's the CEO of XL8, a machine translation startup that recently raised a pre-Series A round. Hi, Tim.
Hello. Hi, Florian. How are you, everyone?
Hey, Tim. So where does this podcast find you today? What city, what country?
I'm located in San Jose, Silicon Valley.
San Jose, Silicon Valley. That's where you have to be located when you're spinning up a machine translation startup, don't you?
Exactly.
There you go. So first of all, tell us the kind of extended elevator pitch for XL8 so just our listeners can get a bit of a better understanding of what you do.
Sure. We are XL8. It's spelled XL and 8, meaning sometimes X can be pronounced as trans, So when you read it XL8, it's translate. So we are a Silicon Valley startup founded in 2019 by myself from Google and another guy from Apple. So this machine translation market is very competitive. There are over 50 machine translation vendors, but we are the only media-focused machine translation company. So we serve a lot of language service providers who serves their content translations to Netflix, HBO, or Disney. And then because we are focused on the media industry and media domain, our quality in this media space is very high, and it's not comparable to any other MT vendors.
Got it. So definitely want to know more about this, and it's a very new type of machine translate kind of play on machine translation. We've seen a lot of others, but like in the media space, this is very rare, and it's a very different set of challenges in my view. Now, tell us a bit more about your professional background. You mentioned Google, but you were with companies like Samsung and Google before. So what were you doing at these big tech giants, and how did that lead to XL8?
I started my career at Samsung, where its headquarters is located in Suwon. And I was the lead developer for Taigen, which is a Linux-based platform for mobile devices or TVs. And then I extended my career into an academic space. I got my PhD from Columbia University, developing distributed embedded systems. So we're kind of running machine learning algorithms on top of small devices, cloud computers, or heterogeneous devices too. So after that, I started my career at Google, especially in search team. So I was like, I'm kind of experienced IT guy, tech guy, and surprised me Google. And then I ended up learning a lot of things from the company, especially about the engineering culture, how tech team should be operated, rather than the technology itself. So it was a really big help because I was working as TLM, tech lead and manager, operating teams, doing research and engineering, which is actually a big asset at XL8 right now. So it's in the search team, the things I've been working on was kind of search components and machine learning stuff and the overall engineering. So search product itself is actually part of big NLP program. So there's a lot of like NLP components in there, like a classification, tagging, labeling, clustering, and recommendations, all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of very fascinating and very engineering driven team. Given the size of the company, how kind of bottom decision making process it has is kind of very interesting. So I still kind of like the culture, so we adopted many of that at XLA now. And I do actually have a kind of bag of signatures and letters from my old colleagues when I left Google, kind of cheering me up about it's a new venture. So that's kind of my power.
That's quite the superpower. Interesting, yeah. I mean, obviously, search is the core, right? So interesting that this would lead you to go into machine translation. Now, tell me more about that. Like, what was the origin story? Like the spark that kind of triggered you founding XL8? Maybe I think it was in 2019, right? And then what was the trajectory so far? Tell us a few milestones, co-founders, things like that.
I met this guy, Jay, from Korea. We started our studies at Columbia University at the same time in 2011. So we met there, and he studied his master's degree while I studied my PhD. So he finished his degree in 1 year and then started working at a startup called Fancy.com. And then after that, he started working at Apple, and I studied at Google. And then after spending 4 years each, kind of we were actually hanging out at a kind of keys cafe. So we both have keys. And so we're kind of having a play date. And then I was discussing this new startup idea, and then I was discussing the kind of the plans, and then kind of like revealing some of the stuff to this guy. And he was, "Oh man, I'm gonna join the startup." So that's how it just started in 2019. So it's funny that we kind of known to each other the past 10 years, and then it's been only like 3 years since we started working together actually.
What triggered the idea, though? Was it like the kind of rise of, I don't know, rise and rise and rise of Netflix and all these other streamers? Did you have like a personal pain point that you experienced and then like, oh, that could be a great startup idea? Or what was the trigger behind the idea?
Well, yeah, as a non-native speaker, language has been my interest and passion as well. Learning it is kind of a painful process, taking a lot of time as well. And since I've been working on AI and NLP area, and it was also actually 2017 when it was kind of clear that machine translation will change the landscape of localization industry dramatically. So my idea was kind of with this growing demand on machine translation, with our expertise in this area, we can do something very cool. And meanwhile, we kind of like came up with this business idea of if we build this perfect feedback loop, which I will be able to explain soon. Um, that's kind of the idea of core of the idea of how we can beat these big tech companies who also do machine translation, because media space is kind of like a very segmented, specialized area where we need a specialized data and training pipeline for coming up with a kind of very specialized engine for these users.
Got it. So let's talk about the products. Two very interesting products. One is called MediaCAT. The other one is called EventCAT. So just give us a brief overview before we go into a bit more detail.
So we have these two CAT products, as you may know already. CAT means computer-aided translations. So MediaCAT is something that we wrap our existing AI component. So as an AI tech company specializing in media localization, we started developing a lot of AI components that helps the users to do speech recognition, machine translation, and synthesized dubbing as well. And then we needed to combine these components into a process to support a better user experience and especially their workflows. So our philosophy behind that is uh, in our platform, humans will be working closely with AI. With the help of AI, they can achieve more. Instead of AI being replaced humans' efforts, we can help them to scale out. So because there are a lot of like growing demands of localization, people can do more work more efficiently with this AI helps. So MediaCAT is a place where people can do a sync, which is speech recognition, making a movie clip, for instance, into a subtitle with the same language, and translate, convert that into multiple other languages at the same time, and also dub, which synthesizes voices and then mixes that into the video. And what is core to that is kind of we didn't have the feature where people can correct all the mistakes from the machine. So now we have this post-edit process where people can do subtitle edit using an editor we recently introduced into MediaCAT. So that's why we call it MediaCAT, which kind of like orchestrate the people's workflows so that people can use AI and also incorporate their efforts into it. And EventCAT is another product that we recently launched where either human interpreters or AI can support live events. So there are live events. Actually, with the COVID, there are a lot of like growing demands for live events online, especially. So people needed to talk with people who doesn't speak their language. So there is a lot of RSI, remote simultaneous interpretation platform, where human translators log in into this online system and do interpretation. And this EventCAT is an expansion of that. So people can do interpretation online, and also AI can help part of that. Either the human interpreters or there could be some demands can be fulfilled by AI.
That's a super challenging space, and I really want to kind of do a bit of a deep dive there as well. But first, you mentioned MediaCAT and the three components, if I caught this right. So you got sync, translate, and then like synthesize or the dub component. Can we go a bit more into detail there? So what do you do with sync? Obviously, translate, we get that more. I mean, but we can go into the underlying stuff, and then the dub component where you're working with synthetic speech. That word always gets me. So sync, translate, and dub. Tell us more about that.
Sync, as the name suggests, it synchronizes video with the subtitle we create with this component. So basically, it generates a subtitle by speech recognition and then also time code based on the kind of like the speech when it was spoken. So like all these components, also like all other AI components in the world, the major challenge is the accuracy, because AI, in some areas, it is surpassing humans' behavior or humans' manual process, but many of them are actually still under humans' accuracy. So achieving or surpassing the human accuracy is kind of the major challenge, and then that's what everyone is kind of having kind of like putting a lot of efforts on. But there are some media specific challenges as well, like speaker diarization, for instance. Speaker recognition of these days, they can recognize the text and the time almost correctly in many cases, sometimes over 95%, sometimes over 98%. But still, speaker recognition is a major challenge, because when you want to utilize the recognized text from the media clip, we want to recognize the speaker so that we can kind of like tag the speaker ID for the particular text, or sometimes we want to use that relation between the speakers. And when it comes to dubbing, we also want to utilize the speaker ID so that we can use different voices for different speaker. So that's one of the challenges we have in Sync. There are a group of customers who want to use Sync for creating closed captions.
Seems like a kind of at the intersection, right? Of like, usually it's very different, like it's very segmented. You got the subtitling and the captioning, but like you're kind of operating in both worlds here.
Exactly. So yeah, closed caption is a very interesting area where it also requires speaker identification, because we need to add chevrons between two speakers when they speak close to each other. And we also need to identify the sound, like a sound effect, like door close, squeaky sound, or water drops, or this kind of stuff. So which is what all ASL automatic speech recognition vendors are missing right now. So we are working with other companies who are specialized in speaker recognition, sound recognition, sound effect recognition. So we can actually add this speed into our closed caption generation. That's kind of like one of our roadmap for Sync.
That just blew my mind. So you're automatically adding, like, what do you call it?
Sound effect recognition.
Okay, dog barking in the distance.
Yeah.
All right, and yeah, don't translate that. The dog barks. It's the same everywhere. Is a lot of this? Are you doing a lot of this kind of in a proprietary manner, or are you leveraging some other kind of bigger models? Let's say for the translate piece, or maybe for the speech synthesis piece. It's probably really hard to kind of do all this from scratch, right?
Yes, that is correct. So we, as other companies, we are utilizing many kind of like published platforms. For instance, for translation, we are still using transformers, but we have added a lot of secret sauce there. Not only the data, but also a part of the model. The encoders we are using for transformer is completely different from what is open. And also we do have a specialized modules in this platform we have incorporated in, which is called the context awareness. So I'll explain more about context awareness later, but there are two types of context awareness. One is source context, and the second is target context. So usually when it comes to machine translation, it usually means source context only, because two reasons. Number one is usually the context you can info from the source text. Most of the cases you can also get that from the target context as well, meaning if the sentence was correctly translated, the context you can get out of the source sentences should be still in the target sentences, right? And the number two, in machine translation, this translation is not always correct. So if you get this context out of the target sentences, there is a chance that it might be wrong. So because of these two reasons, in machine translation, target context is not utilized as much as the source context. But when it comes to media localization or localization process we are working on, it's a little bit different, because people do post at it, meaning whatever we do machine translation for, they have a chance to post at it. We work with the human translators to post at it. And then because this post added context or sentences is perfect because human just corrected it. And also there's a chance that there might be some added context in the target sentences, which didn't exist in the source context. So that's something we have a patent for. And also we are kind of like improving our editor to allow this feature for our users as well. So that's what we are working on currently for translation users.
Yeah, when they're using it as they're producing it. But you also when we covered your seed round there, you also mentioned that you're training the engines, right, on 100% professionally hand curated, post edited golden data. Let's stick to that. So how do you define golden data? Like how do you think this differs from maybe others? Are you like very kind of conservative in what kind of data you're using for training, or just tell us a bit more without obviously giving away any secret sauce here?
I'll first need to explain a little bit about the typical media localization process. So what LSP does for translating a media content is they do speech recognition to get a perfected transcript. So they run ASR and then correct the transcript and then do machine translation and then correct it again. So before that, actually, a traditional approach was human created a English template, for instance, for content. Let's say Hollywood content in English. Then they come up with an English template, and then humans translated that into multiple different languages. And then because these human translators can make mistakes too, they have several layers of QCers or post editors who fixes any human mistakes from the previous stage. And then they sometimes have 2 layers of QC, sometimes 3, or sometimes 4 as well. And then this perfected results were then delivered to their customers. So now what they do with AI is they use machine translation to have the first pass of translation and then keep the human QCers so that they can still have the perfected result delivered to their customers. But we are also, through our partnership, we are still getting this perfected result back to our service engines. So we can continuously improve our engines because this means if there's any mistakes made by a machine, then we can get the corrected data back to our machine saying, well, you made a mistake. Then you need to correct that, right? So that's kind of a continuous learning process we have in our data project pipeline. So when I said golden data, that's kind of the key. So all the data that is fed to our engines are human curated 100%, and also not by any amateurs. It's all human professionals who are doing this job for decades, right? Meanwhile, other machine translation, especially the company I used to work for, or other big tech companies, all others doing is they scrape this data from the web and then try to match the source sentence to their target sentences they scraped from the web, and which is inherently low quality because there are a lot of mistakes in the web pages. And then matching these to each other is another challenge. And also, because the tone and styles of sentences are totally different from what we are expecting for media content. Converting this rubbish data into kind of good data is kind of very hard process. So they are doing a lot of research on that, trying to turn this bad data into good data, which I call like non-gold data.
Now that's a lot of customization and work for if you go into kind of the low-level content. So can we just talk a bit about key target markets and use cases? I mean, are you eventually aiming or already aiming at like the kind of entertainment market? Just quick example, we recently talked about a company called iQIYI, Chinese streaming platform that said in a kind of analyst call that they're using machine dubbing, AI dubbing for some of their kind of long tail content. Like, do you see this happening already in really proper entertainment content, or what's your kind of initial market that you're looking at?
It's not surprising that iQIYI uses AI for their efficient data processing, localization, or content creation as well, because that is what's happening with LSPs. So whatever you watch in the Netflix show, probably kind of like a larger portion of that has been through some process that is somehow AI is involved, right? So that's already happening with LSPs and other companies as well. And more encouraging is there are kind of new cases without post-edit too. So there are a market called FAST or AVOD, free ad-supported TVs, where they have so low budget to create content, or they have like large volume of catalog content they want to just publish out, but they don't have enough resource to hire human translators to localize all their content and then make subtitles or dubbing. So what they are trying to do is they try to utilize AI to add subtitles and do very light post edit or no post edit sometimes, and then just kind of publish that out on this platform. So that's what's happening. And then if you see the YouTube market, there are also many YouTubers try to utilize voices for their content. So well, it also depends on how you segment your kind of like major proper media platforms, but that is happening around this core of the platforms, and then getting into more and more as the quality of the technology is getting improved further and further.
Yeah, I think Aichi is probably doing what you, what was that? The ad supported one?
Fast market, AVOD.
Yeah, but that's probably what they're doing. Like it was some, what was it? It might have been a Korean drama, but kind of AI dubbed into Thai or something like that. And it was, yeah, I guess that's what they're doing. You mentioned YouTube as well. We recently also covered kind of their, whatever you call it, beta program, where they're adding like multilingual audio options for some of their biggest creator. So far, I've only seen Mr. Beast having that option. Like you know, you can actually select a different audio, and it was human dubbing. It wasn't AI dubbing. Maybe in the back it was AI enabled, but who knows? So how do you see that, maybe where YouTube would be going? And do you see kind of both a space for human dubbing, but also maybe some automated solutions like Allowed, that kind of whatever you call it, like the Google incubated, startup or whatever the right term there is?
I see this very encouraging movement. It'll definitely help people for people who have hard time reading or who has very small screen to read anything from, so they can listen to the content in their own language they can understand. In terms of the dubbing, unlike from sync or translate, it has its own challenge. You know, if you do speech recognition or translation, as I explained earlier, people can do post edit because it's text. The output is text, and they can fix it easily. But with the dubbing, you can't really do any post edit. So some of the companies are doing some kind of like post edit or pre edit or pre processing. So if some pronunciation from the synthesized voices is not correct, they change the text a little bit so that you can have better pronunciation for it. They sometimes add a space, they sometimes add a comma, and then redo it. So this is a little bit different from the typical post edit process we have for sync and translate. But still, they kind of came up with a way to make it better and make it work for this kind of these types of content. So because of this effort, I believe some people have some ways to come up with a synthesized audio track that people can enjoy from. And then when this is applied to YouTube channels, I think this is really kind of valuable addition because we don't need to kind of replace all human dubbing with the synthesized voices. But what we can do is we can use major voices from human, but still use low usage languages with the machine synthesized voices. Or sometimes if we have hard time kind of hiring a human voice talent, then we can use AI. So this kind of combination will be something that we'll be seeking into the next few years, at least.
That's so interesting. Just a quick follow-up on that. You said that sometimes they would tweak the words to to tweak the pronunciation. Is there anything on the horizon to like granularly tweak synthesized voices? Like, oh, I'd like to get that word kind of sad, like a sad ending or like a happy end. Like, is that something that's possible already, or?
That's also happening. So we are working very closely with voice synthesis companies, many of them. And emotion has been traditionally a pain point because what was generated is typically emotionless. So what they're trying to do is some companies has an approach to extract the emotions into something that people can understand. It's all numbers, but apply that emotion vector into the synthesized voices so that they can mimic the same emotion from the source voice. Or what they also do is kind of they have several knobs so that they can add some emotions like happy, angry, loud, or depressed or something like that, so that the synthesized voice can kind of have some level of emotions that was asked by the user. That's kind of like a very useful approach as well, but it's not perfect yet, but it's kind of very fast growing area as well. And as this helps the users to listen to the synthesized voices, but there are markets where people appreciate any level of voice synthesis, because some viewers, for instance, like idol fans, they've been watching their idols show or programs without even understanding what's going on. So if there's subtitles, to even if it's inaccurate, they can appreciate what they can read from, or what they can hear from the content.
A very good point. So now we spent like 20 minutes talking about media and media content, and you're not only going after media. With EventCAT, you're going after kind of the captioning and the live events market as well. Isn't that a bit of a stretch to go after like these two big giant markets and technically complex markets so early on in kind of the life cycle? So what was the decision making behind like adding this as well?
Despite how it sounds, those two areas are really very close areas, because since last year we started adding speech into this translation, what we are doing. So live events is a very interesting market where a lot of people have high demand, and even human interpreters cannot translate it very accurately because it's real time. So when we segment our market, so LSPs are typically falling into this non-real time but needs pausality category. So these are two pillars: real timeness and needs pausality or not. So the other market we're seeing, like a fast market, is non-real time but still need no pausality or light pausality. And the last piece is live events, meaning real time and no pausality. Because it's real time, people cannot pausality real time. There could be some technologies can be developed for that, but not yet. So this is a huge market. There are a lot of sports leagues, NFL, NHL, alone are kind of very huge giant market where we can potentially real time translate the broadcasters into another language and people can listen to real time. And esports is another growing segment, which is kind of huge as well. So as we are doing translation, very good. When we applied it to speech translation, the accuracy is super high, and then we found that this is kind of very competitive alongside other speech translation solutions, if you call. So we found ourselves very competitive in this market, and then our customers were appreciating it. So we kind of like found, well, this is a market we should go into, and then we already have some customers. And then there were some gaps still between the human interpreters and AI interpretation. So we're trying to find a way to close the gap, because either we help with a tool for the interpreters, or when human interpreters are not available, we can use AI. We're still figuring out the way, but something with what we are trying to solve with the platform.
Got it. Yeah, I think you also have like a marketplace where interpreters can, be booked through. Is that correct? Or
That is correct.
it's interesting when you say it looks, maybe from like a historical perspective, it looks like those are two very different markets. But when you're coming in with fresh eyes and like look at it from a tech point of view, they're actually not that different, I guess, technologically. So that's an interesting framing you're looking through there. Let's talk about raising some funds. So like you raised, what was it, or at least you announced like a couple of weeks ago. So what was how did you perceive kind of the fundraising environment for language technology? And then like, how was the process with your lead investor? I think it's a company called Atinum Investment. So just tell us a couple of nice anecdotes from that process there.
As many are aware, the market is kind of like down than in this last year. But also some people say it's still the same hype. So when it comes to the investment market, some sectors got affected more than others. And the belief in the market is a good company will get enough fund no matter what the market status is. and then they will be able to get accelerate their growth no matter how the market is. So we haven't started the next round, but we got contacted by several other investors already due to the news. So people got kind of like our names floating around somewhere, and then sent an email, and then we have several meetings already. So I think the belief is no matter the market status, it's most important to kind of build our core technology and then competence. So as long as we secure our own market and then have growth trajectory, we'll be able to secure the next round or get enough dry powder to jump to the next one. And regarding the Atinum investment, it was a small round. We didn't intend to have like big Series A rounding, which we're still kind of pushing to the next year. But Atinum is kind of very strong investor in Korea. So they do have a Singapore branch where they can connect us with the multiple Singapore companies or Southeast Asia companies. And because an interesting point about our business is that we don't charge based on the price of the content, but we charge based on their usage, right? So still the primary usage comes from the Southeast Asia countries. So like Indonesian, Thailand, Vietnamese, they are consuming a lot of like English content or some other content that is pivoted into English first or translating that into their languages. So having fund from the Atinum investment is definitely helpful for us to expand more of its Asian market.
And you have another big name on your cap table there with Iyuno-SDI. So how did that come about, and how's kind of the collaboration with them?
Iyuno-SDI has been a great partner. They've been one of the crucial partners. We have our feedback loop that I explained earlier. So they use our service, and then any mistakes made by the machine is corrected by their professionals and fed back to our training pipeline. So we can constantly improve our engines and services and kind of correcting all the mistakes. So not only the partnership, but they're also a front runner in innovating their own process and workflows. So we are kind of sharing some of the visions and motivations because they are industry leader in localization process. And then if they come up with the new ideas, discuss with us, and then we can come up with some solution that might work for all other LSPs as well. So that's how we've been working together. Business-wise, they're also kind of like good friend of mine. So they are not hesitating kind of introducing us new customers for us.
Got it. Yeah, and they also have a strong presence, I guess, in Singapore, also historically, right? I mean, originally the company was founded in Singapore, if I'm not wrong, right? At least Iyuno was.
I think it was originally founded in Korea and then moved to Singapore. And since they acquired a merged company from the States and Europe, so I think the headquarters has been somewhere.
Now it's global.
It's global.
Quick question on the hiring environment. Like it used to be super tough a year ago, 2 years ago, hiring kind of this, machine learning talent. How do you see that currently, and how excited are people about joining like an NLP/machine translation startup at this point?
It's been very competitive. We've been trying to hire some people from Amazon, and then actually during the process, Amazon announced that they will raise like 20% the employee salary or something, and then it was gone. And particularly many good AI researchers were hired by big tech companies these days. It's kind of very hard to poach any of them. But now the market sentiment, people are not trying to move and as much as they did before. And also companies are kind of a little bit more careful about hiring new people because it's investment as well. So we're also looking into the market, kind of carefully watching the sentiment and how people are moving around. But I think in general, AI professionals will be very kind of like have a high competitive edge in the market, no matter the market situation over the next few years at least. And then that's what's happening. And we were lucky to secure some of the researchers from Qualcomm and other AI institute because the strategy so far we had was we are still a very small company. So far we were able to hire someone who knows someone in our company. So we can at least kind of know their kind of like background, how they will perform with our colleagues. So that's how we're operating. But to scale, I think we should go through this kind of major challenge still.
It's always so weird when I hear these stories, like you go and say, hey, I have an offer, and then they up your salary by 20%. I wonder how many times you can pull that trick off. So what's in the roadmap for you guys in the next 12 to 18 months? Any exciting features, additions, initiatives you can share already now?
Yeah, as I explained earlier, there are many kind of technical challenges and kind of pain points the business or the industry is kind of going through. So for MediaCAT, we wanted to add more enterprise features. So in our roadmap for 2023, we'll be adding seat management, project management, or batch processing catalogs. So like a fast customers, they want to translate their 20,000 films they have in their catalog, and they want to get them translated at the same time. So we want to add this kind of batch processing feature as well. And as I said, we have this target context awareness that we are adding to our UI so that people can post at it and then see the improving translation for the next sentence right away, real time. And also what we are planning is personalization. So not only that is applied to the correction is applied to the next sentence, but also applies to series of the content they are translating in the future. So that's something that we are incorporating into MediaCAT. And for EventCAT, it's a platform for live events. So definitely want to host more live events and add more streaming features. So we are working with Zixi. So they are kind of live streaming platform. And then we are getting their stream translate as subtitles and then kind of like, stream that back to their platform so that their customers can watch with subtitles real time. So we are expanding these kind of features into more live and broadcasting environment where we can support more customers.
Try to getting in touch with Hopin, and then we could use it at our SlatorCon conference, maybe.
That's a great idea.
It's probably an open company. They should probably be open to adding additional features. Well, Tim, this was fascinating. Got to say, this is one of the most interesting startups and ideas I've come across in a long time. So good luck with scaling that further, and hope to have you back on the pod in a couple of years from now and check in on progress.
That'll be my pleasure. Thank you, Florian.
Thank you.